Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the show. This episode is brought to you by The Wellness Paradigm, a holistic health coaching company shifting the way that women understand and heal their bodies. Through bioenergetic testing, functional lab testing, and functional nutrition, we uncover what traditional approaches often overlook so you can stop guessing, start healing, and finally feel like yourself again. No more one size fits all protocols, just real answers, deep rooted healing, and the clarity and confidence you deserve to feel incredible. It's time to shift the paradigm of women's health. Now, on to our show. And good morning, Morgan.
Morning. Hi, Shannon.
Excited for our conversation here. We're going to talk about some really interesting ways of viewing finance and just how women view finance. And I think this is a really
Mm,
important topic, especially on a wellness podcast, which you would think, well, how does this tie in? I mean, so many women struggle with their finances, right? And it plays a huge impact on their health. And so I really love your holistic point of view that you take. So,
thank
she is a
you.
holistic wealth coach and the founder of Holistic Bucks Coaching. And she really helps soul conscious women and entrepreneurs build wealth in a way that feels aligned to them and not just what numbers say on a bank account. So,
Right.
give us a little bit more idea on who you are and what weaved you into this profession.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's a bit of a long story, and I'm always like, which one do I start with? It's like two, three different stories that kind of merge together. But I would start with obviously being a wealth coach, how my financial journey sort of started, and then maybe we can like piggyback a bit later into like the spiritual journey that kind of the mindset for me to be able to take my finances on. Um, but yeah, it's most of like my awakenings or journeys started in universities. So I would say maybe like third year university. One of my really good friends and roommate, she was taking trips to go see a financial advisor, and she's what I would call like an expander. So someone that can be of inspiration to you, or somewhat of like a role model, but like that looks like you. So it's very easy to sort of imagine yourself in the same position or same place. And so, yeah, just knowing that like we had a similar upbringing, I knew that she didn't have a lot of money or like a lot of wealth because most people who invest think that you have to have, like maybe you're born into riches or you have to have like this huge sum of money that falls into your lap in order to start. And I was like, well, where are you getting this money from? Like, like we had a friendship where we were comfortable enough to like, question each other in that way. I'm like, I didn't think you had money like that. Like, how are you finding this money to like invest? And she's like, oh, like, it doesn't have to be a lot. Like, it's just a few $100s. And like, I'm talking with my financial advisor and they're explaining to me, like, just like how like investing works and breaking down the different investment products. And so she's like, I found a product where I could put money away and like lock it away for like X amount of years. And it's just like slowly compounding interest and like the money's just growing on its own over time. And I was just like fascinated with the idea that you could just put your money into something and then like it just grows and like without you having to put in extra time and effort and work. And the fact that she's doing it and it's like, okay, I feel like I could do this too. This seems accessible and like yeah, just like I have the ability to do that. So I just started like researching on my own, continuing to get curious, asking her more questions while also just like, reading books and like starting to really lean on like the financial literacy piece of my journey. And then I would say like 6 months in, I finally gained the confidence to put my money into the stock market. So I saved about like $5,000 over the years, relatively closer to investing in the stock market, like that last year or so, saved up enough money. And by the end of the year, like from me putting the $5,000 into the market, a year from that, I was able to double my returns, which is like really amazing because most like the average investor normally would see like usually between like 7 to 10% returns. On average. It could be more, it could be less. So for me to see like 10 times that amount in like my first year investing like on my own, just like choosing my own investment products, I was like, wow, like there's something to this. And then I also made sure like I would say before I became a coach, I would have been investing for maybe between like 4 to 5 years. So I it also was this aspect of like wanting to be consistent. Like I didn't want it to just be like a one time, oh maybe I just got lucky. It's like no, like I know what I'm doing. I'm seeing repeated results. And I would say maybe like after graduating, I got my first job at a not-for-profit. And I've always like, sort of wanted to help people. I've always wanted to be of service. I wasn't clear on like what that would look like. But after graduating, started this job and like a year or two in, like started to not really like it. Like I felt like I wanted to create something for myself. And I didn't know still yet like what that could look like. But I was making all these strides in my finances, like paying off debt as well. I started to build up like a really good sizable emergency fund and just feeling the most empowered and confident around my money I've ever been. And so that's kind of when I started to be exposed to the world of coaching because I always thought coaching was like maybe like a fitness coach or someone you have in the gym. And then I realized, no, you can actually have, there's coaches for like different areas of your life you're trying to improve on. And so I was like, yeah, like let's give it a go. Let's start an Instagram account and just like share people like my own financial journey and like just educate them on like finances and specifically empowering women. Cause I know like, definitely we are a marginalized group. I've gone through my own hardships just being a woman, being a Black woman, and so specifically wanting to empower women around their money. And yeah, that's how I became the wealth coach. I am holistic wealth coach. I am today.
Now, like you say, holistic wealth coach, what does
Right.
that really mean? When a lot of people think holistic, again, they'll think, the health space. So how do you embody
Right.
more of this holistic lifestyle approach to wealth?
Yeah. So holistic for me is not just how can I make the most money. It's also just living a quality life based on how you spend your money, how you save your money, how you just navigate that relationship. And so usually I would incorporate a lot of spiritual and wellness practices because when we're looking at changing any area of our life, like it's you kind of have to like look at the big picture. It's not just dialing in to just that specific area. So over, just my own experiences, I realized that, for example, mindset is going to be really important. Like, what are your beliefs around money? Your health, how are you taking care of yourself? Because if you're not physically fit, like, how are you going to show up for your work or your career or, like your business? And the spiritual aspects of it would just be like knowing who you are and what your mission is or purpose and ensuring that all the decisions that you make are in alignment to that because I think that will help bring you closer to fulfillment and happiness and not trying to be happy based on what society is telling you that should look like, right? And so much of how we spend our money is really based on like optics, right? Like what's going to make me look good, like what's going to maybe more likely improve my status around my family, my friends, instead of honoring like actually like what feels good to you. So yeah, and like social, there's I call it the oh my gosh, I call it like the wealth ecosystem, so there's just like it's like 8 areas of what you'd want to look at. And so yeah, like social, time, health, education, relationships, all of that are going to be just as important into how you show up when it comes to your money. Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned like, nervous system, I think is a big thing we talk about on this podcast in so many
Mm,
aspects. But, what are some examples of how nervous system regulation really plays a role in somebody's, financial
right.
choices or ability to grow wealth?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, when your body is in a state of panic or fight or flight is what they would say, like when your nervous system is activated, it can be good depending on the situation, right? Like when the situation really calls for it. So if you're like in real danger, real threat to like your life, like this is like a life or death scenario, stress, fear, those responses are definitely needed. But when you are stressing over things that maybe won't kill you, it might put you at a disadvantage in maybe life or set you back a bit, but it's definitely not going to kill you if you're constantly in this fight or flight um, um, response or like just constantly living in fear or anxiety. these feelings that don't necessarily feel good when they're on and activated all the time, that's definitely negatively going to impact how you make decisions around your money, right? So if you're I always say, like, you never want to make an important financial decision when you're stressed or when you're angry. Maybe you just had like a fight with your partner. Like, don't run and, like, go make an important financial decision because most likely, like, you're not making a decision from a grounded and centered state. And so that's why you might see people, look back and like have certain regrets around their finances. Like, oh, I probably shouldn't have spent this much money on this or that. And it's because maybe when you did make that decision, it was in a activated hyperactive state, or it could be the opposite. It could be some people shut down, right? So some people freeze, they tend to avoid. You can kind of look at this from like the angle of or like through the lens of attachment styles as well, right? Which is also like a trauma response. So some people just shut down. Maybe that's like avoiding looking at their budget sheet, avoiding just having difficult conversations, maybe with a partner about money. Yeah. And so I kind of see like it's on a spectrum. So you have like avoidance, and then you have like anxiousness, and some people kind of bounce between two. Some people kind of stay in more in one. And the whole objective is to kind of like come to the center and find some kind of balance in your relationship with money, and more specifically like making decisions from that centered place, making sure that your nervous system is calm, is balanced. And that's like some of the work that I do with my clients. Like, what does that look like what tools can we sort of start bringing in order to do that?
Yeah. Now, as far as actually building the monetary side of things, what are maybe some of your favorite tools for people that are
Right.
maybe getting started or have a little bit of knowledge, but they want to grow wealth. They don't really know what to do. They're overwhelmed.
Right.
They may be short on time. You know, um,
Right.
where are you usually starting with them?
Great. So yeah, on the like wellness side of things, I would definitely say, how can you kind of create that balance and like, operate and show up in your life from that more grounded state would be to definitely work on mindset. So some of the work that I like to do is incorporate simple gratitude practices, because I feel like so often people operate from this mindset of scarcity. Like they don't have enough, sort of like you said, like they don't have enough time, they don't have enough money, they don't have enough. And so starting with where you're at, like what do you have enough of? Because then that sort of shifts you into this energetic state of abundance, right? Like just simply just stating three things that you're grateful for. I had like a nice warm meal today, clean drinking water. Like it can be that simple to kind of just remind you, like, yes, I could have it better, but like I still have it good, because there's always someone looking at your situation that probably actually covets you and actually would want to be in your situation. But so often we're looking at like the lack and what we don't have. So gratitude, definitely like um meditation can be a great practice to sort of even just like reduce stress, come back into the body, feel comfortable and just being still. Because, like I said, so often we're making decisions from this like agitated kind of state of mind. So, test yourself. How can you, be aware of when you are being still and being present, and then, learning what that looks like, how that feels in your body, and eventually being able to match that as you're showing up in your life and making certain important decisions. Movement is going to be important too. So whether it's exercising, yoga, whatever it is to you. For me, I'm not like really that big into like high intensity sort of workouts, but I'll either do yoga if that's the season that I feel like I'm in, or I'll just like go for a walk to like clear my mind. I try to get my 10,000 steps in every day. It doesn't always happen, but I think it's just like the intention that counts. Um, and then like also I would just end off with like limiting beliefs. So like really actually looking at maybe taking the time to journal and reflect, like what's my money story? What are some of the beliefs that I whole that are probably actually holding me back, right? And how can I shift those into more empowering beliefs around my ability to thrive when it comes to managing my finances, or to or to feel wealthy and abundant.
Yeah, all really solid practices for anybody to
Mhm.
embody. Now, if somebody is, okay, I've got that down, I've been embodying those things, but bring me the money.
Right. Right.
How are you, working with client? In what capacity are you working with clients in either educating, investing? Like, what are your favorite
Mm,
ways to use to actually, you know, um, build a portfolio, build wealth?
right. Yeah. So this is I actually my work, I call it the wealth framework. It's almost like a tongue twister. So I have to say it really slow. And so the first part of the framework, which is like any kind of offering that I provide my clients, it always starts with like wellness. So sort of like what we just covered. And then I would start to shift into the practical. Okay, like let's actually bring in the money now. So that's where education comes in, like the financial literacy piece, because so much of us have no knowledge, right? Like not many people were gifted or had the privilege to have parents that were maybe like really wealthy or just knew how to hold on to wealth in a certain type of way. And so, yeah, and like, my family, for example, like they're an immigrant family. So they came here, they kind of just did the best with like what they knew, they saved, they bought a home, which is a great example of like, building wealth, like having some sort of financial asset. But that was it. Like I wasn't taught like anything about stocks or, interest and things like that. And just realizing that there's other viable pathways, not just one. And so, yeah, it was really just through, when I shared my story earlier of how I started investing, I kind of started backwards because usually most finance experts will say like that's like the last stage in your wealth building journey, because you want to sort of averse yourself to risk. So you want to make sure that you have like an emergency fund, and then what does that look like? And then you want to minimize your debt, especially like high interest debt, because you don't want that high interest to be working against you. 20% versus the 8% that you're maybe earning on your investments. It will kind of cancel out. So it defeats the purpose, right? So those are things like I never really looked at when I first started. I was like, I just want to make a lot of money. Let me put money into the stock market. Um, so yeah, I kind of went backwards, but what I would say is to first, like, I mean, if you want to learn, you have me, right? Podcasts, books. That's how I started, just generally just like researching on the internet, having conversations with people. Like maybe there is someone in your circle that does have a lot of wealth or is investing, if they're willing to sit down and have a conversation with you, take that opportunity to learn from people that like, you highly regard and like you respect, and start there as well. And yeah, I typically would say like the first few things you want to start with is definitely looking at your money. So budgeting, I like to call it wealth tracking because budgeting sounds very like restrictive to people. And some people, depending on your attachment style, you might like shut down at that word. So I would say getting into the habit of like just regularly looking at your money. There was a point in my life where I would just like every day, just like even though I knew where my numbers were at, like just getting into the habit of just looking, opening up this bank account, looking at my investments. I love looking at my investments because I'm like, I want to see if I'm up or down this, like today. Um, but getting into the habit of looking, just looking at numbers, looking at what's coming in, what's going out. And I feel like that's definitely where you need to start because once you know what's coming in, what's going out, that's when you can really start to um, I would say like, yeah, work towards a specific goal around your money. You know like where you want to funnel your money, where it needs to go, but you don't know where it needs to go if you're not looking at it.
Yeah, that's a big one. Talk about this with health too. It's just like you can't really change
Mm,
things. You don't really know where they're at, just kind of hoping and
right.
praying things are good. Um,
Exactly.
Now, if somebody, there's a lot of trauma responses to money, right?
Yeah.
Especially women, like they're maybe not taught. They're taught it's maybe, not safe to have a lot of money or a lot of money is bad. There's a lot of patterns that show up for a lot of people, and how are you rewiring that? Because I find that stops a lot of people from even just looking at their finances, as it just doesn't, they don't feel safe around it, or they don't know what to do about it.
Right. So yeah, I would say when it comes to trauma, I think that's where definitely leaning on those wellness tools that I sort of mentioned earlier, like getting to a place where you can figure out like what makes you feel safe in your body because trauma is definitely a response to not feeling safe, right? So if you can bring yourself to a place where you do feel safe to then look at your money. And like I said, that could be whether that's exploring, maybe meditation, certain somatic embodied practices like tapping, movement. Sometimes I even just like, if I'm going through maybe a difficult situation in my life, like for example, right now, I'm kind of going through like not kind of, I am going through like a friendship breakup. And I feel like sometimes friendship breakups are even harder than romantic ones. And so for me, like movement is so necessary, like yoga, stretching, even just dancing, like just, sometimes I'll put on like a good playlist for the day and just really shake it out, just shake out that excess energy, move it around. And like it's not so simple to just say, just do that practice and like your trauma's gone, right? Like this is like everyday work. This is everyday work. It's habits that you have to put into practice and to be consistent with. With trauma, like, definitely being gentle on yourself and showing yourself compassion. Like you have had hard experiences in your life that maybe many other people haven't had to experience or go through, or maybe they have, but definitely being gentle and understanding that like you're in this space that you don't want to be in, but knowing like it's not forever, getting clear on, okay, this is the version of what I want to be. I don't want to let my trauma hold me back. And to recognize that like trauma is really just your, emotions not being able to find a way to safety. So, like I said, just leaning on some of these tools to bring you back to that. And then I feel like when you get to that place where now you feel confident, you feel safe, now you can like look at the numbers. Now you can start to have conversations and really like challenge yourself to do so bit by bit, right? Like it's not like an overnight thing. Even when I started investing, I would say I wasn't someone that was, I had my own limiting beliefs around money and feeling like that's, money's hard to come by. It's really only for the rich. Like, am I going to be able to like really manage money on my own? I've never been responsible for it. Like, and really just it's just small daily steps, just reading a book and listening to this podcast, having these conversations, and slowly over time building up that confidence to feel like I can take this on.
Yeah. Now, if somebody only had, let's say, 100, $200 to invest a month, maybe they feel like, oh, well, this isn't enough, right? Where would you tell them to maybe start? And
Mm,
just kind of, exploring this a little bit more.
yeah. So for investing, well, you'd have to kind of determine what type of investor you are. So for most people, I would say the best place to start would to be doing not what I did, which is like invest for yourself, because only like say like maybe between 5 to 10% of do-it-yourself investors are actually successful. So the best strategy to start with is to have someone do it for you. So the more traditional route would be, of course, going to see a financial advisor, like what my friend did. And then a second option, which has kind of grown in popularity the past few years, especially within COVID, is a robo advisor. So it's more of like an AI powered or driven app where it's tied to a bank and you pretty much just share with same thing that you would do with a financial advisor. You share your goals. What are you investing towards? Is it retirement? Is it down payment on a home? Whatever other goals you're working towards, and what's your level of risk. How old are you too? Because if you're younger, you probably can be a bit more aggressive in the ways that you're investing. Can probably put your investments in more risk averse portfolios versus like when you're older and you're closer to retirement, you don't really want to like risk what you've built over the years. So you'd start to see slowly your advisor or your portfolio should shift to something that's a bit more conservative. And that just means like it's like a different combination of like investment products that are just low risk. So with $200, um, I would say definitely talk to someone or use a robo advisor to put that money into it and ensuring, I mean, if you're doing it on your own, you would want to make sure that you diversify. So you're not putting all your money into like one stock, for example, right? And so this is the stuff that I teach like in my Confident Investor course. Like, what are the different types of investment products, and like how do you diversify? And how do you know to put like X amount here and X amount there? But yeah, I would definitely say like to start, definitely don't feel like you have to do it on your own because that becomes a bit more complicated. I feel like you have to really carve out the time and have the energy to learn and to gain confidence in that before you do it. So if you want to get started like tomorrow, call your bank, set up an appointment, or research robo advisors that you can, any apps that you can download where you can have someone manage your money for you and start there.
Yeah, I know you mentioned too, just like books or podcasts, obviously you
Hmm.
have resources. Have there been any pivotal books or, or podcasts even, or people that have made like the biggest impact on your life?
Yeah. So I like the first finance book I ever read was Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And I realized a lot of the finance books I read starting off were mindset based. So he just, his book is all about, having two dads. So his biological dad is like the poor dad. And then he has this mentor, which is like his rich dad. And he pretty much just like takes us through this journey of like both of their lives and how they both got to where they were. Like his dad was, maybe did pick the conventional path, went to school, got a job, and like worked until he was 65, but he was like highly unfulfilled, just maybe still not as wealthy as he could have been. I don't think his poor father like ever invested. So he never had his money working for him. And then he has like this rich mentor who's like very entrepreneurial, like took the unconventional path and started different businesses and then use those businesses to create other businesses and investing in real estate and stocks to like have your money work for you and like yeah, it just really like opened up my mind to like the different possibilities and the different pathways. And I think so often we're taught like it's just this one way. And I love that I get to do that in my work is like I have women that are have like just in so much different seasons of their life. I have entrepreneurial women, I have women ready to retire, millennials that like maybe just got their first job and like, are just being very proactive with their money and their investments. Um, but yeah, I would say like that definitely Rich Dad Poor Dad is the book I would recommend to like anyone to read to start off with. And it's heavily tied to like mindset for sure.
Now, to kind of almost wrap things up, but like, what do you think is one habit that you see more
Mm,
wealthy people embody that or practice consistently that almost anybody could really adopt?
mm. Ooh, okay. I kind of said gratitude earlier, but I'm gonna say something that we haven't talked about much yet. I would say getting clear on your values. Like, I mean, it's only an activity you kind of have to do. I wouldn't say you have to do it once. Like, I think it's something that, every few months or whenever you feel like you need to kind of just check in with yourself again and see if you're on the right path and your choices are in alignment with them. But yeah, your values, like what do you stand for? And I think by understanding your values, you understand a bit more of who you are, what's important to you. And like I said a little bit earlier, the reason why this is important is because then we're ensuring that the way that you are spending your money, the way that you're consuming, even the way that you're investing, right? Like you are doing this in a way that's in alignment, that feels good, that's not sacrificing yourself or going against what you stand for, like I said. So, for example, something that I'm really talking about right now in my work is ethical investing because so often we talk about just investing for the sake of profits. How can I make the most money possible? But a lot of people don't realize that your money is funding, some of your investments could be funding corporations that you don't stand for or believe in or want to support, right? Because when you're investing, you're pretty much sort of purchasing stake in a company, right? Like some form of ownership of that company. So I remember at one point when I first started investing, I had my money in this like ETF, which is just a certain type of investment product. It's kind of similar to like a mutual fund. And when I was looking at the breakdown of what companies were in this ETF, I saw like McDonald's, Coca-Cola, and I'm pretty sure someone like you who's like really big on health would be like, I don't want my money going towards, these companies. Like I might drink it like a Coca-Cola once in a while, like maybe like once out of the year or something like that. But it's not something I actively want to be putting my money towards and like making a profit off of. So, things like that. Like the more you know yourself, the more you will feel good about the way that you're spending your money, the way that you're receiving money, even just like the types of work that that you choose to take on. I could be doing a lot of things for money, but they just don't, stand for, what I believe in or what I want to do. And so I'm not going to compromise my integrity. And I feel like that's why even if I have $0 in my bank account or a million, I feel good. Like I feel like I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life because the work that I'm doing is fulfilling. The people that I have around me are quality. I take good care of my body. And I think that's really what matters most. Like money will come and go, but how you feel, I think that's the most important part amongst all of it. So getting clear on who you are, your values, and it becomes much easier to show up for yourself.
Hmm. Something that I feel like isn't talked about enough in the wealth, community.
Yeah.
Um, so appreciate you bringing that to
Yeah.
really the forefront. Now, if people wanted
Right.
to learn a little bit more about kind of what you do and the different, techniques and avenues you take clients through, where can they connect a little
Right.
bit more?
Yeah, definitely head straight to my website, morganblackman.com. It's just my name. My YouTube channel is also at Morgan Blackman. And I would say I would love to gift your audience my From Financial Confusion to Clarity webinar. So I'm sure you'll probably drop that in the link below or the description
Yeah.
for this episode. But yeah, it that webinar specifically talks about the three mistakes that most people are making with their money. So yeah, I think that might give benefit to your audience today based on what we talked about.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll put that down below in the show notes along with your website and maybe social media as well.
Yeah,
So people can shoot you a DM if they want to connect a little bit deeper. But otherwise, I appreciate you being here and sharing your wisdom with
thank
us.
you.
And listeners always appreciate you being here as well. Definitely share this if you know that somebody could hear it. I'm sure that there's one or two that you guys are thinking of right now. But otherwise, thank you, and we will catch you guys on the next show. Thank you, Morgan.
Thank you.